Okay. I don't use PowerPoint very much, as you will gather fairly soon. Okay, for people who haven't used Vixen before, it's sequencing software, same as LSP, LOR, HLS, various other software packages. It's free and it's open source. If your name's Alec, okay, so if you really insist on some volume, we'll do that. If your name's Alec, then the free bit appeals to you. If you like supporting the rest of the Christmas community, then the open source will appeal. It's going to upset me. Okay, a bit of history. V2, Vixen version 2, has been around for probably about 10 years. There were predecessors that it seems to have been built on, but that's sort of steeped in history, and it's long before my time. It was and still is in many areas immensely popular, especially in the States. There are a lot of people, especially the people who stick to traditional Christmas lighting systems with incandescents and yes, 110 volt strings. They love Vixen too, and they will stick with it forever. But it does have its limitations when you get into more modern lighting systems with RGB and pixels. It doesn't handle RGB particularly well. It can be done, but it's a lot of messing around. It works on a linear grid with rigid timing, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it can be a limitation depending on what you're trying to do. Vixen 3 development started about 4 years ago, and it's basically built from scratch on a brand new framework. It's a new concept altogether compared to Vixen 2. Now, as we go through this, you'll see that there are quite a number of similarities between LSP and Vixen 3. Obviously, you want to do similar things, so similar concepts are going to come out in the design. So the major difference is that it encourages you to sequence at a higher conceptual level rather than concentrating on individual lights. It encourages you to think about the artistic side of things rather than physical blobs of light. So it encourages you to look at the big picture rather than the detail. And then Vixen will translate that into the appropriate channels. Once you've set it all up, it'll translate your intentions into outputs on appropriate channels at appropriate times. So that's the idea. And you'll note the warning up the top there. There's a lot of gobbledygook sort of arm waving involved in that, and hopefully you'll see some of it clarify as I go through the demonstration later. So display elements, very similar in concept to LSP. The groups concept appears to be quite similar to the layer concept in LSP. So we're not talking about absolute unique stuff here. There's a lot of similarities. But what is an element is the thing. Well, if you've got a length of dumb RGB strip, then that length of strip is just an element in Vixen. It's not 3 channels. It's not 3 LEDs. It's one element. If you couple several of those together into a particular prop or a motif maybe, then that becomes an element in its own right, which also becomes a group because it contains subservient elements. So there's a logical structure there. There's a hierarchy of items in your display, and you can sequence at any level of that hierarchy. You can go down to the individual channel level, if you like, the individual, well, I shouldn't say channel level, the individual element, the very lowest level. You can do that if you want to, or you can sequence on a higher level. You can do what Matt did with LSP, and you can have an all item, which is your entire display, and you can just generate a sequence on the entire display at the same time. So you can come up with flashing lights very, very quickly. You can have elements again, this is very similar to LSP. You can have elements belonging to multiple groups. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, a particular light can be grouped with any number of different artistic arrangements in your display. It's, again, a lot of arm waving, but the demo and hopefully some questions later on when we get a chance to actually play, I can demonstrate some of these things and it will become a bit clearer. Your elements can have various properties. Obviously the color handling is one of them. They can be defined as RGB. They can be defined as single color. They have a position property as well, and that position property is generated when you place your items onto the preview, and that position property is used in some of the effects. In particular the wipe effect that is becoming very popular these days. It's all done automatically through the preview. You can allocate a dimming curve to your lights. So we were talking about the difference between LEDs and incandescents earlier. LEDs tend to light up very quickly, and you can double the power being sent to them, and you barely notice the difference in the brightness. So you can set up a dimming curve within Vixen to try and compensate for that, so that what you conceptually want as a linear increase in brightness, you can set up a dimming curve that will achieve that on the physical lights, and that can be different for different light strings that you use. Different types of LEDs even have different dimming curves. You can do that within Vixen. Okay, setting up your display. I say there's a hierarchy. You could, for example, subdivide your display logically into three groups. You could have a roof group. You could have a group of items that are hanging on your wall. You could have items that are placed out in your garden. So you can structure your elements in such a way that you could control them at a roof level, have your entire roof running the same effect. Or you can drop down, expand your element tree to work on the individual items as you see fit. Just expanding on that, we've got the whole roof. One of the items I've got there is the roof, and in that roof I've got two other groups underneath that. One's the outline strip that you might use to outline items on your roof, and you might have some stars on your roof. So if we expand, oops, wrong way, let's go that way. If we expand on the outline strip, you might have some strips sitting on your left-hand hip. I've got two hips on my roof, so there's a left hip, there's a right hip. I've got a ridge cap that I can run strip along. I've got a gutter that I can run strip along. You might break down that gutter into four separate areas, and each one of those areas might be a string of pixels. So there's any number. You can expand that tree as many levels as you like, entirely up to your artistic intention. Alternatively, you could conceptually subdivide your display based on the type of lights you're using, and this came up earlier in discussion about some of your sequences. You might want to use all your old incandescent lights because you get a softer look to the display, and the type of music you're using might suit that. So you might want to subdivide your arrangement into different types of lights. So you might have one group of lights being all of your strip. So your strip might be on your ridge, your gutters, it might be outlining your windows. It can be convenient to group those all together as strip. You might have all your retro incandescents and net lights and all of the old 240 volt stuff. You might have them all grouped together in your retro group. You might have a heap of wireframes that you want to group together. You might have a heap of core flute items. So there's different ways of grouping it. Now the interesting thing is that you can have both of those groupings set up together within the same setup, because the elements can be included in multiple groups. If the element has the same name in different places, in different groups, it's still the same element. So you can set up different groupings to suit how you want to do a particular sequence. And that's completely flexible. Okay, there's a preview. I think LOR calls us a visualizer. What does LSP call it? Yeah. So similar sort of thing. You can actually design your display and complete all of your sequencing with just your elements and groups set up and your preview set up. You can do all of your design work at that stage. You don't actually need to set up any of your controllers or patch any of your channels up at this stage. You can just go straight onto the sequencing at this stage. But on the controllers, notice again a lot of similarity with the LSP setup. You can define physical controllers. You can also define logical controllers if you like. In other words, you can have multiple named controllers that physically will translate into one piece of electronics. You can do that. It's all in the configuration. You can rename the controller itself. You can rename logical groups of controllers. You can rename individual channels depending on what you want to achieve and how good your memory is. So it's again completely flexible. Patching is where you make the connections between your conceptual display items as you're visualizing what you want to achieve. That's where you connect that up to the individual light channels. The sequence editor is different in that you don't need to worry about shall I go with 100 millisecond time increments or 1 second time increments or 10-minute time increments. You don't have to set it up all. It is totally free form. There's no rigid timing grid there. Totally flexible. To synchronize to your music, you add marks to the timeline, and the quickest and easiest way to do that is to process your music in Audacity and export beat marks from Audacity, import those into Vixen, and suddenly you've got marks that are exactly aligned up to the beats on your music. Not to the nearest 100 milliseconds or the nearest half a second, they're exactly lined up. Now, when you come to, in the final instance, when it comes to being lit up by the controller, there are limitations in what controllers can handle. So, you know, like DMX, you've got 23 millisecond minimum refresh rate. So you can't achieve anything more than that physically, but conceptually, while you're designing it, no limitation at all. Okay, and you can, I think I mentioned earlier, you can apply effects at the element level or at group levels. And if you're lucky, you'll get a similar effect regardless of where you apply it. If you're unlucky, there's a bug in the system. It does happen. Okay, there are issues with Vixen 3. It is a work in progress. So you know, you do get bugs within the development process. The hope is that come sort of the end of the year, that there's a stable release that you can rely on that is bug-free. So that's the way the development process generally works. And last Christmas we did have a stable release, as it turns out. There's a later development release that I'll be using here for various reasons. The major issue with Vixen 3 is that it's a bit of a resource hog. People who saw me trying to patch up Rob's Megatree on my old XP laptop last year will realize that it was a painful process. The patching functionality was really bad, and the processing demands of doing it were really heavy. And I ended up borrowing one of Matt's laptops and redoing it on the i7. But even that was a bit slow. So I'll demonstrate how much faster it is this year. The other major issue is the import and export of your sequences. That hopefully will be fixed this year. And the minimum intention is to get it to export into Xlight so that you can then convert it into anything else, to the Pi player or LOR or LSP or whatever you want to. So that problem should be addressed this year. The resource issue is also being worked on. How much improvement there is this year, I don't know. But at the moment, you need a fairly powerful PC to run the program if you've got a complicated display. If you've got 16 channels, you can run it on a TRS-80, no problem. That's probably too old for most of you. Nutcracker, the implementation of Nutcracker in Vixen at the moment is a very old one. It's a couple of years old. The hope is that this year also that they'll be able to hook into the latest release of Nutcracker and have it keep track of it as new releases of Nutcracker come out. So that's I know this, and I'm praying that they get that working. It's actually, there is one export capability available which was aimed at the Helix controller, as it turns out. It didn't work all that well. Mainly this resource hog issue. It would work for very simple systems, but the moment you got it too complicated, it fell over. But work has been done on exporting, and there are 2 or 3 of them that are very interested in it. So I won't say I'm confident that it'll happen this year, but I'm pretty hopeful that they will sort that out this year, because it is an obvious thing that a lot of people have been asking for. So, yeah, fingers crossed. Okay, demo time. So let's get out of here. Put the glasses back on. Okay, we fire up Vixen, and first thing get asked for, let's get rid of that window. First thing get asked for, in my case, when you fire up the first time you won't see this, it's only because I've already set up some profiles that it asks me what profile I want to use. So what I'm going to do, in fact I'll just load one for the time being, because what you will, when you see this window here is because it's a developer version, so it's saying beware, beware, this is likely to crash on you, so you accept that. Normally all you see to start off with is this window in the middle, so that gives you the basic hooks into the rest of the program. And one of those hooks is the profile manager. So if I go to profiles, I'll set up a brand new profile here, so it's as if we were starting from scratch. So I'm going to give it I'm going to add a new one, give it a new name, and I think I'm up to demo 3, so we'll make this one demo 4. And because I know better, I won't use the default location for it. I'll set it up in a folder that's on my root directory of the C drive. One of the other issues with Vixen 3 is portability between users of Vixen 3. By default, it sets up your profile in your home My Documents directory, but it uses the full path name, which is different on different computers, so that's really is a pain. So I'm giving you a path that can be the same on any computer. And so I'm putting it into the Vixen directory with the subdirectory. I use the same name as the profile name. Okay, now it's telling me I've got to restart it there, so I will restart it. If I'd gone into the profile editor straight away, it wouldn't have given me that. But now I've got the choice of the profiles I've got set up, so demo 4 is the blank one, loaded up. Gives me the warning about the development version. And the first thing we're going to do is set up the display. So we click on Setup Display, and we get the setup and patching, display configuration screen. that allows you to set up your elements, set up your controllers, and patch them together all in the one spot. And this is where the vast improvement is from last year. So in this drop-down menu on the left, it gives you some pre-configured items that you can set up, one of which is a single item, so you can set things up one at a time if you want to. You can set up a pixel grid automatically. You can set up a megatree automatically, the starburst, which is what I'm going to do here, and is one of the reasons why I picked this particular version, because it's new in this version. Or there's an item there which is called a generic numbered group. And if we use that generic numbered group, that gives you a lot of flexibility in how you structure and number your display elements, much like the whatever it was in LSP, where you could set up every fourth item, whatever that was. I can't remember what you called it now. But you can do that with that generic numbered group. It's messy to use. You have to know what you're doing, so I'm not going to demonstrate that. Just telling you it's available. So we'll go straight to the starburst and hit the add elements. So I'm going to give it, I don't like the name starburst, I'm going to call it a spinner, just because I can. I've got 12 spokes, so I can use the control there just to select it, or I can just type in there. I'm going to tick on the fact that it's a pixel starburst, and I'm going to type in the number of pixels on each spoke, which is in that case 26. If it's not, yeah, it would be just a single element for each arm if you didn't have pixel. Yeah. You could still have multi-segmented RGB. You call it pixel though, but you'd say, if I've got 4 segments, you say I've got 4 pixels. So you fool it one way or another. Okay. So there we have it. We have a spinner. All you see is the name. If I expand that, you'll see there's the 12 arms. It names them spinner, spoke 1, spoke 2, spoke 3, etc. If I expand each of those spokes, you'll see that I've got 26 pixels in there. So we'll collapse those down again because I really don't need to know that detail at all. Next thing I want to do is to configure it. So I'll just select it. I'll come down the bottom here, and I can select what to configure about it. Now it's the default is dimming curve. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do color handling. Click on the configure button, and I get some choices as to how to set up the color handling. Now it can be a single color item. It can be multiple colored items of different discrete values, but the most logical one, and I wish they'd make this the default, is RGB. So click on RGB down the bottom there, hit OK, and it's telling me that it's added 312 color properties. But if you multiply, we've got that 12 by 26, that's what you get. Okay, and you'll now notice in the patching setup in the middle there, total patching points, 936. So that's actually the number of channels that you've got from those 312 pixels. So it's just it's set that up automatically. Okay, it's happy with that. Now let's set up a controller. I'm going to set up an E131 controller. So click Add, give it a name. I'm going to do this just on a physical controller basis, just for simplicity. And I've got an E6804 there. So I'm going to call it an E6804, and I'm going to add the last 3 digits of its IP address, just for my own convenience, so I'll remember what the IP address is for that particular controller. Wants to know how many outputs. Well, it's there for me, 936. Hit OK, and I've got a controller there. And if I expand that in the controller list, then there they are, all 936 of them. Don't need to know that though, so we'll compress that back down again. Okay, now we've got to configure it. So we'll select it. find the configure button, which is not a particularly distinct icon, by the way, but once you know where it is, it's no drama. And we see a very familiar setup form there. So first thing I'm going to do is to put in a unicast address for the destination. Personally, I do all of my E131 in unicast. You can use multicast if you like, but I see no reason not to define it exactly the way it is. There's no point in it doing it any other way as far as I'm concerned. So 198, I always get that wrong. 192, 168, 1212. Okay, and that's now available on the drop-down list there. So we'll select that. You can activate it. It's going to start on universe 1, pixel 1, and that's a full universe. So we'll put in the 510 for that. We'll activate the second one, which is going to be on universe 2. It's going to start on 511, which is a very confusing way of doing it. I think they all do it much the same. Yeah, it's all based on the J1sys original driver for it, so they're all the same. As I say, it doesn't make sense. I mean, you think it's going to start on universe 2, channel 1, why not? But no, it starts on 511. It's all based on the channel number within the not the. So what I want there is links 426. That gives us the 936 total. Pick the unicast address again. It's all active. Fingers crossed that will work. So there we go. We've got a spinner over the left-hand side here. We've got the controller on the right-hand side. Lo and behold, because I've set it up that way, the number of outputs is 936. The number of patch points on the elements is 936. Which one? The setup for the. That's oops. Oh, that's going to upset me. Time to live. I don't think anybody knows what that means.
From what I've gathered, and I'm not wrong what I'm asking you, is how many router/switches it will progress through. So if you wait at the yard to me for a router, then you'll let them there. You give them it's a tip of 1, I imagine it's not going to get out to.
I can't answer that question. I don't know. I had the feeling that it was related to actual time that the controller stays alive without being used. But you'll see. It worked okay?
Almost positive,
yeah.
So I had a router to another router and then out to the whatever it was, and it worked.
Yeah.
One because I didn't know.
I've tried routing and switching, and it doesn't seem to make it. I don't know anybody that actually knows what it really does, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah. It's just there. Don't touch it. Yeah. Same as there's a couple of things you can change down the bottom here to do with time that the system stays alive after you don't send data to it. There's ways of changing that, but I've never touched it. It works, so I'm never going to touch it. Yeah, can't actually answer that question. Don't know anybody that can. Oh, Ed might know, if you can remember.
Andrew and I remember seeing something with them, and Hamilton, and I know talking about it all way over here on my head.
Yeah.
I also thought that it was a simple one, we're going to go one router/switch deep.
Don't know.
I don't know. It's actually coming through the multicast to talk to Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might actually be multicast.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. Mm. Anyway, moving right along. We've selected the elements, we've selected the controller. All I do is hit patch, and it's done it. They're patched. Remember that Saturday morning that I spent patching? How long did that take to press that button? Patched. So that's all I need to do there for my simple demonstration. I mean, we'll add a lot more later on in the day or the weekend.
It's actually visualising that. Is that drawn onto a visualizer?
Well, let's go and do that, shall we? Here we go. Set up preview. So we click on Add Preview. It's going to be a Vixen display preview. There is the capability of having different types of previews. At the moment, there's only one built in. At some stage, there'll be a 3D preview. Certainly, I expect this year there'll be at least multi-previews, so you can have a preview of what's on. It's like if you're on a corner block, for instance, you want two views. So I'm pretty sure they'll do that this year, and they're talking about a 3D preview. Well, that might take a bit longer. Okay, and there we've got a preview, and it's pretty blank at the moment because we have to select it again and hit configure. Personally, I'd do that all in one hit because it's obvious what you want to do. Okay, first thing we'll do is we'll bring in an image, and got some images in there. So here's my place. Darken it down. This all sounds so familiar, doesn't it? Okay. Pick the spinner in the element list there, and click on the starburst symbol up on the list of drawing objects up the top here.
What are your objects up there? You've got rainbow.
There's the rainbow is an arch. That's an arch. There's a net there, which is not to be confused with the matrix. There's the megatree. There's the spinner or firework or starburst. There's the pixel grid, matrix, star, and candy cane. That's a weird-looking candy cane, but if you look close, actually it probably looks better on there than it does on my screen. It's a candy cane. Yeah, it's a candy cane. And they're just predefined shapes. But the thing is, okay, we'll click on that, and then we click and drag in the preview, and there it is. Not only there it is, it's already patched. Now, properties box down the bottom here, we can fiddle with the properties of it. I can change the string count in there. I don't want to do that here because it's pre-patched. If it wasn't patched to anything, like I can put a starburst in there. I'll just do it for the demonstration. I'll deselect, put in another starburst over here, and that's not connected to anything. So I can fiddle around with whatever I like there, change the properties, and once I've done that, then you'll see linked elements. I can click on the linked elements, and I can link them within another window. So I can draw first and then link, or I can link in the process of drawing. Yeah, it's not hard to figure out which is the easiest at this stage. So. So I'll pick that and delete it because it's just a distraction. So this particular spinner, it's set up with 12 spokes. It's got the right number of lights per spoke. What I will do is change that light size of 3 to something like 5, so that when we actually do something, it's a bit more visible on the screen there. But otherwise. Yep. If I want to, at the moment, and I'll demonstrate this, I'll expand the element list and show you how this maps by default. That is the first spoke. Yeah, why it's there, I don't know, but it's as good a place as any. I mean, no matter where you pick, somebody said, no, I don't want it there. I looked at this first and said, if that's the default, that's where mine is. But if I hadn't, and a lot of people do, and I might have said, I want this to be a clock, so I want that one to be number 1. So the way you get around that is by rotating. So there's a control down here, and if I make that 30, for instance, then there's string 1. If I'd made it minus 60, it would have been up in the 1 o'clock position.
What about channel configuration for each channel? Like that highlighted one there is.
Let me. Right. Let's.
So
skip that.
Is it default?
It defaults to
the inside spoke is
so
channel 1?
can you? That might not be. So one thing I will do is make the inner circle size larger than 0. Let's make it.
So if you highlight a channel over there, you'll actually.
Let's make it 40.
Yeah, you'll see it pop up.
Now you can actually see the highlight on channel 1, and that more closely resembles what you actually get in practice, because you can never get all the pixels into the center. So you can step through there and see which named pixel translates into what spot on the screen. And I think I can do things like multiple select there, and I think I almost did it, but let go again. Yeah, it doesn't quite do that. Yeah, but that obviously should stay on, but I wonder whether I can do it by using control. No, it just flashes. Yeah. So yeah, as we know, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. The star. The star. Well, yeah, the star is weird, I have to tell you. It will improve. I'm not sure whether. Let's have a look. Let me compress that. That must be it. Yeah. And that's actually a drain plug. Let's just put a star on there because I can. This won't be linked to anything. And
a star can obviously, depending on the way that it's set up, can be drawn as a pixel element.
Yeah.
Or straight.
Yeah. If I change that to pixel. This has got the rotation as well. I think that's new as well. So if I put in 90 there, then it'll spin around. I don't know whether that was 90 degrees or not, but you can. Oh yeah. So you can configure it to. That's right. It's pretty flexible and getting better all the time. Because people say, "Oh, it doesn't do this," so. I agree. Okay, we'll delete that. Sometimes you've got to reselect it, even though it's already selected, for it to delete. I can live with that. So we've got our display set up. I mean, you'd normally have a heap of other stuff on there, but that'll do for the time being. So I'll close that down, and you've now got to hit OK again to get rid of that. And I'm going to generate a new sequence just to demonstrate something very quickly. You have a choice of a scripted sequence which allows you to put in some instructions that basically look like C# code that I'm never going to touch. Or you can have a conventional time sequence, so we'll open up a time sequence. So there's what you see to start off with. And I'm going to collapse that down because I don't need much room. And all I've got there is a spinner, so let's just drop a nutcracker effect onto that. So all you do is click and drag it across the timeline. There's the default bars nutcracker effect. Hit play, and if we expand out. Sorry? Oh yeah. That's fixed. The question is, why isn't it lighting up? Oh, maybe if I turn the controller on, it might help, mightn't it? Let's do that, just for the hell of it.
So basically, when you set up all your elements, or whatever, so basically when you set up all your elements and start a new Vixen sequence, it will always select all those elements. Like you just start up a new one there and that spins.
It depends on how you've structured your collection of elements. If you've got multiple groups at the top level, you'll see them all there. Just as you saw them in that setup screen, that's basically the way they'll appear there, but collapse down to the top level of each group. If you've got an entire display group, then that's all you'll see. And you just click on it to expand it, same as you would in any sort of Windows directory application or something. So you can sequence on individual spokes. You can sequence on individual pixels if you want to. So it's just a matter of setting up so you can see things. You can do things like compressing the timeline.
You go onto that nutcracker sequence that you put in there now on spin of one line.
Yeah.
And drop something.
Let's just stick a simple pulse on there.
It'll just do it on that spin of one line.
Yeah. Let me.
It's all very similar. It's just different.
Well, this is it. So what I'll do is
this is just dragging the end of the fade back on the timeline. That's been around for a long time.
I hate that. Why are we not talking? For some reason, the computer's not talking to the. It's not talking to the controller. I'm not quite sure why. It's probably a Dickey Cat5 cable. Let me stick that in the pocket. Be safer there. There we go. Okay. There we go.
You can just highlight that section and repeat it.
You see the loop symbol there. If I click loop, it'll just and you can see the arrow at the top there that I've selected. And you see the white on spoke one comes up on top.
If you did something on the spoke, it's going to override the.
It's the effects are superimposed, and it's a case of brightest wins.
Yep.
That actually sounds fine, but it is actually a limitation. Sometimes you want one effect to modulate another, so that you can run a fade over the top of a nutcracker effect, for instance, so that the overall effect fades out in time. Can't do that at the moment, but it is something that's on the cards. So there you go. That's, I mean, how long would that have taken if
compared to how long it take last year?
Just
to put it into perspective, while Dave's been talking about it started, I was trying to do the exact same thing on LSP, and I'm on my fourth arm.
Yeah, because you've got to draw them individually.
Exactly right. Yeah. I've got to draw and then assign each of those arms to each start.
But there's a case of the leapfrogging effects. LSP will have that this year, almost guaranteed. If they see that it's popular, and this is a popular prop, lots of people have got these things. So you can bet your life that LSP will be thinking about it.
They did it with the 3D tree.
Yeah. And that is no different conceptually to a megatree. It's exactly the same. It's just a top view on a megatree. Just a couple of other things. What's that doing? I'll just save that. I'll call it. Yeah.
You've got the cable running from the top.
Yeah, I'd run it differently.
If you apply it up and down,
down instead of up and up.
Yeah.
You retest it on one of those computer screens and change all.
Yeah, you can do that. It's messier to when you've got to do the zigzag effect within the patching. That hopefully will be improved this year as well. But if you're using a SAN Devices controller, if you have a look somewhere here, down the bottom there where it says zigzag every, well, I'd zigzag every 26 by 3 channels. No, I don't know if is that pixel? That's probably every 26 pixels, and it would do it all in the controller. I wouldn't have to worry about the wiring being zigzagged. The controller would take care of it. Vixen wouldn't need to know. Now, I don't think the J16 controllers have that capability. They do have the ability to revert, like if you set up an individual line for each of the spokes, you can then reverse alternate ones. So you can always do that. In fact, you can do exactly the same technique in the patching within Vixen. It just takes longer. And I'm all for it taking no time at all now. I like it. So we'll get out of there, and I'll just quickly close that down and do the, here's one I prepared earlier job. Now the question is, which one was it? Number 2, I think. Uh, 192, 168, 1212. This one, you see I've got a whole display there. I've got a roof, a wall, and the garden. And I think on the wall I've got the spinner. And just spread that out a bit. So I've got a few things set up here. I'll compress down the timeline so I can actually see.
Vixen have the waveforms, audio waveforms. That's one.
Not yet. Also on the cards. There's a lot of things on the cards. I mean, not everything will be achieved this year.
But as you said, the way to do, like in Light Show, we actually do it through the scrubbing where you can add a timing mark, whereas you said you'd do it through Audacity. Yep. And that's similar to what I'm playing with now with obviously the Pi as well. With Nutcracker importing into Light Show Pro, you do your Nutcracker sequence up in Audacity, whack it in, X-Lights, put your effects on with effect of Light Show.
So there you go, it's probably enough for now.
That was
like in there,
very simple.
later on the weekend, play with it. There's lots of other things you can do. It has come a long way.